Well, good evening. Good evening. Welcome out to Life University. We're going to open up with a word of prayer, and then I'm going to give a brief description of Life University, and then I'll be introducing our keynote faculty for tonight. Father, we thank you for an opportunity to learn. We thank you for an opportunity to increase knowledge. Your word says our people perish for a lack of knowledge, and so knowledge is life. And we just thank you for that tonight. Bless our speaker and bless those in attendance. In Jesus' name, amen. Wow. So welcome out to our Life University. This is the third installment of the year. And this is our 2015-2016 learning season. And so we're just excited about what's going on. Well, Life University is a part of the teaching arm of the Tabernacle Church. And there's a scripture that says, Jesus says that he came that we might have life and life more abundantly. But we know in our community that people will not experience abundant life if their families are a wreck, if their finances are in shambles, if their health is failing, if they're illiterate, if there's absentee leadership. And so we just decided that we wanted to do something about that, and through a vehicle called Life University. So what Life University does is it focuses in on 5 key areas: family, finance, health, education, and leadership. And so we have a seminar speaker come, an expert in the field, and we have them talk about a particular topic. And then we have classes, small group classes that happen afterwards, so that if people want to go deeper into a topic and gain greater understanding, they would have an opportunity to do that. We believe that knowledge is not just power, but knowledge is life. We also believe that when you know better, you do better. And so we're just committed to community transformation, and this is one of the ways that we're helping to contribute to that. That being said, I have the pleasure of introducing a good friend of mine. We go back to Nathan Hale Elementary School. Not as students. Someone said, wow, way back. But as teachers. We were teachers at Nathan Hale Elementary School together. I taught 3rd grade, and Dr. Durant taught 4th grade. And it was funny watching him teach because he was such a serious teacher. I mean, his students were on point. And he would give them these vocabulary challenges. And they would be challenged to learn as many vocabulary words as they could. And I believe it was off of some of the graduate entry exam tests where you had to have vocabulary as a part of that exam. And he was drilling the kids. And you would hope as a teacher that they didn't call you out on the vocabulary word, because they would challenge teachers even in the hallway. And they would say, do you know what this word means? And do you know what that word means? And they would run it down. And the students who left his classroom, they were so prepared to go to the next level. And we would dream on the stairs of Nathan Hale Elementary, talking about what we wanted to do with our education, what we wanted to do to make an impact in our community. And we talked about getting our graduate degrees, and we talked about getting our doctorate degrees, and what that would look like, and what opportunities that would afford us. So I'm so proud of him to see those conversations manifest into what it has to this day, and I'm excited even about his future that is even much brighter. So if you all would help welcome to the stage tonight the superintendent of Toledo Public Schools, my good friend, Dr. Romules Durant.
Good afternoon. Ooh, good afternoon. Again, it's just an honor to be here. Obviously, Mr. Sweeney, Dr. Sweeney, and I have to be good friends because this is a rival day of Bowling Green and University of Toledo, and I am a Rocket, so the fact that I'm here today says it goes deep, right? But again, in regards to today, this is my 3rd keynote speak. I've done over 105 as of this being 105th. And getting out today with the Auto Association in regard to the dealerships, leveraging our auto tech program, as well as the Northwest Ohio Funding Agency, and leveraging some of our after-school programs. And then in regards to going out and speaking in regard to public education, and more importantly, what's going on in TPS, there was a time where a gentleman had raised his hand, and he had challenged and said, Dr. Durant, what makes you TPS proud? And I said, well, let's just start for starters. I said, my cuff says TPS. My French cuff says TPS on the French cuff. My lapel pin says TPS proud on the same time. At the same time, the pin in my jacket says TPS. There's never a bracelet that doesn't say TPS proud on the bracelet. And at the same time, I said, when I lift my pants leg, my sock says TPS proud, right? You know what I'm saying? I said, Jesus may have walked on water, but I could walk on some TPS proud socks. But don't let it end there. I said, because my lips get chapped, my chapstick says TPS proud. You know what I'm saying? But let me know I'm selling these after the show, because schools always need money. So I'm going to, hit you up from there. But again, in regards to representation of the collar and some of the things that it means in regards to the impressions of a child's mind. I had once spoken in regards to a young man who had sent me a picture, and I had shared this with other people because it really touched home to me in regards to the mother felt the need to share the picture of the young man and his shirt. She had just purchased some shirts, and when school starts, you're getting all these school clothes. And she had held up 3 shirts, and then in the second picture, the young man had taken a marker and wrote TPS on the collar, right? And at the same time, I laughed and thought, well, maybe she was upset. And then in the next sentence, she had said that whatever you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, you have left an impression within his own mind that he felt compelled. The first thing he wanted to do was leave TPS on the collar. But at the same time, she says he's a follower of yours, and whenever the news comes on, he shuts the whole house down and makes us all listen. And at the same time, now he makes us refer to him as Dr. Johnson. Right? And this little man's only 6 years old, right? But at the same time, if those mental impressions us as men as well as adults leave in the neurological patterns of a child's mind, in regard to a grandmother close that came to me and said, Dr. Durant, do you know where I go to get the Dr. Durant team jersey? I said, I don't know nothing about that, but if you find one, let me get one. Well, she came back on Monday morning laughing in tears and said, Dr. Durant, I don't have it in me to tell him that jersey's Kevin Durant for the Oklahoma Thunder. But at the end of the day, I said, despite that, allow him to believe what he wants to believe, because it's not the jersey itself, but what the jersey symbolizes, what's in his own mind that he wants to aspire to be. Allow that to be the foster and the gift that keeps giving what's in a child's mind to aspire one day in their own lives. In regard to TPS, TPS had achieved a lot within a 2.5 years' time. We had went from the 4th out, there's the Urban Eights. Urban Eights are the largest school district in the state of Ohio. They called themselves the Urban Eights, and at one point in time, we used to be the 4th ranking prior to coming on board. We currently now are the #1 ranked urban school district in the state of Ohio. We had literally went from the lowest 5 percentile up to the 60th percentile. The next urban school district is Akron at 15%, which shows the disparity we've continued to move in regard to the growth that adds in regard to TPS. At one point in time, TPS hasn't passed a levy in 15 years in regard to new money. We have been blessed in regard to not only receiving a renewal, but new money for the first time last year, and thank you to the voters for supporting the district and continuing the initiative that we're doing here in TPS. When we begin to talk about education, and I tell people one of the primary characteristics, no matter your content knowledge or anything else you do, I said you have to have some sense of compassion, because at the end of the day, in the most challenged schools, a child who's challenged and went through a lot don't care what you know until they know you care. Adults feel the same way regarding no matter you have a doctorate title, whatever that means, that all goes out the window if that person can't feel your spirit and know your heart. Because a child will walk through fire when they know that and will believe anything you tell them, and will always rise above modest means to see to it of your approval. But it all happens merely through a relationship that happens. So we begin to realign the district to improve qualities of relationship. So when I talk to people and say, when we went to a K-8 school, it wasn't just for the element of just changing the district. We began to look at the data, and the data that shown kids from 6th grade to 8th grade had the highest suspension rate, had the lowest parental involvement rate, at the same time with the lowest performing and percentile out of any other grade bands, meaning K to 5 as well as in the high schools. When we had continued to move over, understand when we went back to K to 8, we had literally scrapped entire logistics, meaning middle schools have now become elementary, meaning you were pulling kids out of middle school and taking them right back to elementary school, as well as teachers spreading out from middle school to elementary and elementary to middle school, meaning we had shook the district up. But at the same time, once the dust settles, you begin to truly see the element of much more of a caring environment, but the impact that it had on students. Within the first 3 months with parent-teachers conference, the parental involvement had increased by 60% in all locations on their 7th and 8th graders. At the same time, understanding meaning that a parent who was engaged from K to 5 over some point in time continued to come into the schools, but when you had middle school, they literally had to remove themselves and now say, now I got to reestablish a relationship with a principal, vice principal, and dean. Now I got to figure out these teachers who are in period 1, period 2, period 3. That becomes so daunting that they don't even come through the door. But when we went to K to 8, that parent been there since K to 5. You think they showed up in 6th grade? They know Mr. Ward over here, Mr. White. You think 7th grade, Mr. Ward, how you doing? How my boy doing? 8th grade, Mr. Ward, how my boy doing? At the same time, understand the discipline, which was one of the most alarming, 80% decrease in suspension in regards to 6th to 8th grade. Why? When you talk about the environment itself, meaning little Johnny, who's now in the 8th grade, that kindergarten teacher had him 7 years ago. The 1st grade teacher had him at some point in time. The 3rd grade teacher, the 4th grade teacher, the 5th grade teacher, meaning there was a multiple of people who knew you and knew your expectation and knew your parents didn't raise you that way. And could reinforce it right there on the spot, knowing that I'll call you daddy right now if you continue doing what you're doing, right? At the same time, a child in 7th, 8th grade or whatever that is in a junior high setting who began to act up somewhat and needs and had a great relationship with Miss Johnson in the 5th grade, got a time to remove themselves, go over to there, get themselves together and right back into the classroom. With a middle school concept, you just walked out and went right to the office. Before you know it, you was right back at home. Again, decreased suspension by 80%. So who do you think, what grade band had the largest student growth out of any other grade band? 6th to 8th grade. Meaning you showed parental involvement had a key impact on encouraging education. Discipline, meaning butts were not home, butts were in seats, learning and education, meaning quality of learning continued to persist, at the same time, less removal from out of the classroom. Again, value added usually had an impact on those student scores. At the same time, those had a rate of return in regard to our grades in the state report card system. Special education had an A grade, meaning all those students with special needs that had identified with an IEP. What we did is, many of you have been in school, you remember there used to be a room set aside by itself, and kids were down in those rooms. Well, what we did is we now started putting those kids back in a normal, regular environment and provided a teacher within that room to support those teachers called in-class support. Immediately, their scores went up. So what does that tell you? That a child will rise up to the level of their expectation. You put me in a peer range environment, I will rise up to peer range expectation. At the same time, their motivation to learn was even more encouraged and inspired because I'm now in a regular classroom with my regular peers. Had a huge impact just merely changing the environmental setting, meaning kids are conscious of their environment. You can't tell me no different about what this room really is. They know. Meaning that conscience had an impact on their education. People begin to fail to realize that TPS in regard to the amount of kids, is that we have about 5,000 kids who are identified with an IEP. That's larger than most of the surrounding area schools have as students well enough identified with a challenge in cognitive ability. Again, 2 years straight in special education in A grade. 2 years straight in educating our lowest 20 percentile students, meaning those kids, based on the way the state and the federal government says, whoever at that lowest 20%, you need to show what the growth that you're adding to their education because you can't forget about them. And the interventions that we've used with Race to the Top dollars, as well as Title I and A grade 2 years straight, what A grade means is that you had 2 years of growth in 1 year period of time. Meaning it was significant enough to get an A B is a little bit over a year, a C is about a year's growth, and then a continued onwards. At the same time, in regard to looking at some of the things that we're doing, and adding to that quality. One of the things is we are the only urban 8 school district in the state of Ohio that received an A grade in value-added growth for all students. Again, 2 years growth in 1 year period of time, growth truly matters in the education of these students. But again, we begin to talk about some of our partnerships and some of the other things that we're doing. Now you can go to the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA within the school. Meaning in regard to we were the pioneers of starting, we had Boys and Girls Club built into the bricks and mortars of our school. Sherman Elementary with the first, East Broadway with the second, then we had Marshall Elementary, and now we're looking to add another one over in the Rogers area school. Meaning those kids come straight down right out of the classroom, right into the Boys and Girls Club. No more the siloed institutions that are 2 blocks over somewhere in the north in the community, but more importantly, right there at the same location, your mom and dad picks you up right after work. Again, we begin to leverage the capacity of our talents as educators, but the capacity of programming that happens within our recreational services has truly had a collective impact on our students. In regard to looking at some of the things that we're doing with the gifted students, in regard to now, we begin to allow our elementary kids in 7th and 8th grade to start taking high school credits. We call it early high school opportunity. Meaning those kids who are eligible or those who are identified who can show the rigor or hard work, we bust them every end of the day over to the high school to start taking high school credit. At the same time, now we're doing it with 5th and 6th graders. 5th and 6th graders who are identified as gifted students go over to the high school. Those who are identified and want to take music go to early risers. They go over to the high school. So you begin to think, why are we sending them to high school? In other words, at the end of the day, if I want recruitment and retention, 1, I need to be able to service your gifted means. 2, to be able to show you're an elementary student going to the high school, which adds to your add to your morale in regard to your success. That's a win for you. I'm a 5th grader going to the high school. At the same time, understand this. If you're in the 5th grade, you're going over to the high school. The 6th grade, you're going over to the high school. Now you're in 7th and 8th grade going over to high school. Where do you think you're going in 9th grade? Over to the high school. Oh yeah, we trapped you. We reared you in, right? Put that pole out there, kept bringing you in, because at the end of the day, guess who's got a relationship with the high school? Your mom and dad have probably already met half the staff. Oh, you had Miss Johnson for Algebra 1. You had Miss Jackson for geometry in 8th grade. At the same time, I know the staff up there, they're going to keep you in line. We need to keep you over here. Again, continue to not only provide an opportunity to address some of your gifted within your own talent, but more importantly, how do we maintain that talent in TPS? We have been blessed to increase our enrollment not only last year, but this year in regards to above about 1,200 students, which now we begin to start having conversations about what we're going to do in regard to facility to address some of the students that continue to come back. But again, you can't do that without providing some of the best opportunities and practices for our students. We talk about distance learning. Now understand, our kids learn from a distance learning lab satellited from all over the district. Meaning there was a day where AP courses were offered, but a child couldn't take AP in Latin because they were the only one in the school that wanted to take it. Those days no longer exist. If you're the only child that wants to take Latin, you're going to take Latin in the distance learning. It's being taught over at START. START will teach it and satellite it out to all the high schools. Now, there may be one at Wake, one at Rogers, one at Scott, or wherever they may be. All of them are taking distance learning. We have that in our AP courses as well as some of our upper classes in regard to the coursework offered. But the way it does is the technology is so advanced that it literally puts me into your ear as well as at your desk. Let me tell you how it works, that we have lenses that literally focus in onto your paperwork. We have the same a device called Blackboard. Blackboard operates where the teacher over at START can write on your paper over at Wait. Meaning I could correct your math right on the spot and zero you in and talk to you only in your earpiece to say this is what you're doing wrong, and then go right back to speaking to everybody else. But again, it opens up opportunity for kids who want to take AP courses and some of the courses that are not as common. At the same time, understand in regard to some of the things that we've done in credit recovery. Understand that a child who fails a class puts them on a faster probability of dropout. Where we begin to not only provide such a tutorial, but 2, we provide credit recovery, allow those kids at the end of the day to seek opportunities, meaning they work at their own pace to recover those credits that they may have missed out on. And so ultimately that allows them to stay in pace of their peers so they don't fall behind of the rest of the group. But again, many of the things that we've done to address the needs of the students If you know now that we now offer free breakfast as well as lunch to all students in K-8 schools. You understand what I'm saying? Over 40 elementaries we have in the district, no matter what your socioeconomic status, your parents can make $200,000 a year. All students from K-8 eat for free. Because at the end of the day, we've now removed that stereotype of some who refuse to go sit in that line because they were free. We are now removing the stereotype to understand that parent may not qualify, but they are just as hurting financially as the next person. At the end of the day, everybody's eating. So we walk around, kids walk around like, yeah, I'm eating. Just like you see in the sports, I'm eating, right? But understand that comes with challenges, right? I can remember when we first started it, and we put it, because understand there's got to be math behind it. So people say, okay, this is superintendent, you're caring about the kid, but at the same time, there's a business aspect behind it. Understand that we have about 83% of students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, but all of them are not participating. Only about 40% come in, meaning we can only subsidize on 40%, meaning the government reimburses us. Only at 40%, meaning you got another 40% to maximize your capacity. But what if we brought everybody in? The other 40% that's sitting out there in the neighborhood waiting with kids who are not eligible eventually made their way back in with those kids. At the same time, those who did not want to be identified as free made themselves way back in with the kids. But then we also had opposition of those who were not nearly close eligible. Oh, no, I don't want my kid receiving free breakfast or lunch. No, we're not going to do that. No. So we had to use some skills on them. So we went 5 straight days of cooking cinnamon rolls. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was strategic. And cinnamon rolls have a scent that reaches beyond the walls. Oh, kids were dragging parents into the thing. No, you coming. Finally, parents was like, go ahead, Johnny, you go in there. And before you know it, now they all participate, which we had tripled our participation and of our participation, meaning now food services self-sustains itself. We no longer rely on another budget to make up for what we lose out. It now operates on its own budget merely because we're maximizing the percentage of return on subsidy. Again, being strategic, service the needs of students, but also doing it in a way that is not hitting the budget of the district. At the same time, talking about some of the things that we provide an opportunity within our school district, some of the things that we're doing in regard to advanced placement, but more importantly, what we're doing in regard to college attainment. Some of the things in regard to talking about in education is that we're talking about providing a pipeline for students that ultimately gets them in regard to obtaining not only a diploma, but a degree itself. And so we then began to look at in regard to how do we strategically say that at the end of the day, the law requires you to be here to 12th grade. The more education we can get out of you, the better. Because it allows you to be much more highly qualified when you reach out into the field. And so we've been sitting down with the community colleges and generating pathways to allow students to be able to move forward to not only receive a diploma, but at the end of the day, to be able to walk away with 3 opportunities of either a certification, associate degree, and in some instance, to be able to get into a pre-apprenticeship upon graduation. But again, looking at some of the things in regard to how do we handle and deal this differently. And so what we did was, before we get into that, let me reverse back in regard to saying that if I could, only thing I could do in regard to making sure that you get the end result, we got to take care of business on the front end. I could tell you the most misunderstood and most uneducated concept is early childhood education. People look at, in regard to preschool, as just daycare. Oh, come on in, Johnny, we're just going to watch you, make sure you don't hurt yourself and anything in regards to that. But at the end of the day, you're failing to miss out on an opportunity to make sure that child is prepared to do anything they want to do in life. Understand when I tell you that in regard to the age of birth to 3, it's the most informative years of a child's life. Now I'm going to break this down. Many of you understand what a blueprint is. A blueprint is as a blue in regard to, it shows you the whole design of how you build this building. Meaning if I want to design a blueprint, I want that door to be there, I got to put that door in what? The blueprint. If I want all these lights to hang from this wall, what I got to do is I got to put it in the blueprint. Well, guess what? From 0 to 3 years of age, it's the makeup of a child's mind, meaning you got to put it in the blueprint at those particular times of their life, because their brain is moving fast and developing connections faster than any other time in their life. Meaning they can pick up on a foreign language and eventually be speaking it when they become verbal. Different than you having to study hours after hours because your mind has shut down. At the same time, from 3 to 5, the brain is still developing, but understand it's at a different percentile. Understand the blueprint in regard to by the time the child is age 4, 80% of that blueprint is already developed. Meaning whatever happened between birth to 4, it's already developed. At the same time, by the time a child is 4 years of age, they have already developed a personality. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you got 4-year-old teenagers in your house right now, running the house, right? By the time they're 5 years of age, 90%, and by the time they're 6 years of age, 95% of that blueprint is already designed, meaning this building is already practically built by the time they come to who? Us in kindergarten. Meaning now we got a child who's now starting off in kindergarten, 95% of their blueprint has already been made up. But let's talk about that child whose blueprint don't have a whole lot, don't have that door sitting there. Instead of all these lights, may only have 2 lights sitting in there. What do you do with that blueprint? Meaning if you treat a child's mind like a blueprint of this building, you may have to scrap this whole building. Now, so you're talking about a child behind because you're behind in a construction project because you would scrap the whole project. Understand in regards to we do a kindergarten readiness assessment. That tells you the baseline score of what a child knows in reading, and now they've started adding social emotion and other things before they spend 1 day in a kindergarten classroom. Many of these kids are already identifying in a grade band called needing intensive intervention. I begin to tell people, let's talk about the word intervention. Intervention is a multi-billion-dollar word. You put intervention next to weight loss, you're making billions. You put intervention next to a cigarette, kick the nicotine, you're talking billions. You put intervention next to drugs, you're talking billions. Which means there is no 1 or no 2 or no 3 that even works. Meaning only a percentage that intervention is going to work for. So we're going to start 6-year-olds off every year needing intensive intervention? There's something socially wrong with that. Meaning now that child's blueprint as well as needing means of intervention, they got 6 years to make up because their whole blueprint had been scrapped and you're redefining, developing where they need to be at. Early childhood is more essential than you really know. The amount of time spent researching college needs to be the amount of time researching early childhood. Because at the end of the day, if you want to see that light at the college end, you better take care of business on the front end. So I tell people, you got to understand in regard to education, reading is indicative of school success. Between birth and kindergarten and 3rd grade in school, a child is learning to read. 4th grade on to 12th grade, they read to learn. If reading and learning how to read is slow, what do you think reading to learn is happening? It's even slower. At the same time, I tell people, you read your way into college and you write your way out of it. If you can't read, you're struggling to write. You ain't writing no hypothesis or a dissertation. So again, they're indicative of true success. Meaning, so when you talk about that blueprint is not defined to be successful in reading, you have done nothing to get that child to enroll, sustain, and graduate at the end of the day. So again, truly, when they talk about they talk about the school to prison, I say it's a pipeline from cradle to prison. I said, because at the end of the day, here's what happens when the child is in kindergarten. When they get into, like I said, by the time that child is in kindergarten, what we talk about when I talked about value added, I said, let's look at his weight loss. I said, anything that I do, I look for growth. I really don't care about the benchmark because the benchmark don't apply to me. It's the growth that I look for. So let's talk about weight loss because everyone knows someone who's struggling with weight. I said, let's look at these kids. There's a 320-pound kid in the room. All of a sudden, he's in 3rd grade. 3rd grade is used in many cases that the prison system don't want to let you know about. It's used as a benchmark and a baseline to make an extrapolation that kids who potentially will be incarcerated by the time they're teenagers. Your reading score is very indicative of your life success. You can't read, you'll be in here with them. They use those numbers. So at the end of the day, you got to say, well, how did that happen? You're talking about a 320-pound kid in a room. You give them an instructor who allows them to lose weight and drops them down to 220 pounds, that's a 100-pound loss. And the state report card, the state says that's great, value added, you're going to get an A grade for that. That child lost 100 pounds. But there's another part of the state report card, it's called benchmark. And when you talk about a benchmark for a child's weight, you say he may weigh 220 pounds, but over here, a child who's 5'6" is supposed to weigh 170. You're going to get an F. So when you start talking about the weight in regard to that, so in other words, a child has went 9 months, has had a growth of 100-pound loss. When you know weight loss in regard to that, what happens when the instructor walks away from the person they're training for 3 months? They put the weight back on, correct? You've seen it. And many times they put more weight on. What do you think to a child's mind when the instructional practice leaves and the child goes away for summer with a lack of enrichment for almost 3 months period of time? What do you think happened to the mind? The mind digressed, and before you know it, the child taking 2 steps forward, losing weight, then all of a sudden, summertime comes, takes a step back. And you know in weight loss that a person who lost weight, the ups and downs, and eventually they begin to break. Meaning that you know many people who have dropped out of the gym, and in some instances, you done dropped out of life with your own health risk. Well, these kids are dropping out of school. And in some ways, they become a health risk because now they're out unemployed, at the same time trying to find survival, in many cases in the constructive environment to find that survival. Again, having an impact on early childhood, getting in the midst of regard to setting kids on the right path, and those are the things we're moving towards in regard to developing universal preschool. Meaning it should be a civic virtue for every child born in whether it's in Lucas County or in the state, that child has an opportunity of high quality early childhood education, that they start off as 6-year-olds with a blueprint for success. It's dependent upon them in the school. They see to it that they secure that success. Not to start them off already needing to scrap what they've already brought on, which is very little. Some people say, I don't understand. I said, well, let me give you some scenarios on social class. I said, when I sit and listen to some of the middle class and upper class, the mom may only be 2 months pregnant. They already painting walls. Pink over here, I hear this green really stimulates the left side of the mind. And all of a sudden they got the crib, and remember those things, that dingo and all that? That stuff is supposed to stimulate the mind. That's just not there for play. That's not only play, but to stimulate the mind from musical to anything else. When you hear a person say, well, Johnny's not going to be good in math because I'm not good in math. No, he's a product of your weakness. A child is not born to say, this is my weakness too. At the end of the day, if I know I'm weak in math, guess what I'm doing in that room? There's going to be numbers all over this room. That little baby going to be looking at numbers all day. Oh, you know, right? Because that's what makes it. When they talk about the musicians, they say these people are genius. They're phenomenon. No, the one boy, the man was playing the piano since 2. He learned it, and musical notes was all around him. That's all he knew. So again, when you talk about surrounding, making them an impact on their mind, surround them with education and things such as that, that helps in regard to the intervention, but more importantly, the preparation. So when we get back in regard to the college side of things, to preparing kids for university, and so our mission is college and career readiness in regard to making sure that our students are not only career ready, but college ready. At the same time, providing them a pipeline that allows them to achieve at a higher means than in our past history. And so what we begin to do in regard to, one, looking at our career tech programs. We have over 30 career tech programs throughout the district to offer. At the same time, understanding in regards to the technology, in regard to today's time, you need to be more technological than any other time in history. And that today, the walking off the street to work at Jeep no longer happens. You need to know something about robotics to work at Jeep now. You need to know how to operate a keyboard to work at Jeep now. So again, in regards to preparing for that digital divide, at the same time, making sure the kids are aware of the opportunity that's out there. And so what we begin to do is develop these pipelines for our students. And so we had just purchased a system called Naviance. Naviance is a career builder that does a diagnostic and assessment of how you answer certain questions. Then it develops in regard to what your strengths are and your weaknesses. And over the side that has all your strengths, guess what it's got built around it? All the careers that relate to your strengths. At the same time, the universities that offer programs related to programs of that career. At the same time, your GPA that you need to have, as well as your ACT score that you need to have, as well as all the other measures, meaning if you live in California, you're going to make $100,000 a year. Compared if you live in Ohio, you're going to make $80,000 a year. Or you work in Florida, it gives you all the information you need to know, but more importantly, it aligns to your passion. And I tell people, and I sit there and tell parents all the time, I said, this tool is going to be used to identify, to be able to have conversations with parents at parent-teacher conferences, as well as other opportunities. Meaning at the end of the day, that's no longer, we're going to talk about your child's grades, and let's also talk about what we found in the career pathway program, the Naviance. Your child is strong in these areas. Let me show you careers that we offer within the district as a career trade that your child aligns to. Now, let's not get it twisted. When I say career trade, it don't mean doing just carpentry work or certain things such as that. It means going into education, being an attorney, being a doctor. All those things are trades. They're careers. And so at the same time, let's have a conversation about you going out to see these programs. So that's why in the 6th grade, we do a field trip and take not only administrators, so some administrators who were here last year got to do a field trip to see what the Ag Center looked like, to see what the Aviation Center looks like. Understand there's 77 square miles within TPS. There are programs that many of our faculty don't even know we have. Meaning we have an Aviation Center, had it since 1929. At the same time, we have many other programs regarding to when you talk about animals assistance. We have people who train those dogs right over at the Ag Center on Eber Road. But again, getting our own staff, we bust our counselors over to see that because when they're educated, they can educate you as well as encourage kids to go into these programs. But at the same time, making sure that we provide those opportunities and saying, so now let's talk about it. 5th grade, we identified it. Understand we use 5th grade. Do you realize over in the country of Germany, by the time you're in 5th grade, you have to declare your occupation? Meaning you need to know. If you're going to be a carpenter, 11 years old, it's time to define it because that's the pathway we're going to take you in education. We're going to put you on that track. So that's why we said we're going to have the conversation because if you don't know and you're not talking about 9, you don't know you're not talking about it at 12, if you don't know you ain't talking about it at 18, you're sure not talking about it at 25. You know people with 30 years of age right now still don't know because they haven't had real talk about what they should be doing. So I talk to people and say, understand, you truly need to have revelations within yourself to really delve down and understand what you're passionate about. Some people say, well, Dr. Durant, did you know education? No, it wasn't always education. It was actually pharmacy. Why? Because my mother worked in a medical office, and that's what she said, and hey, they make good money, right? That's what parents are about, monetary value. Said they make good money. I said, and just as a child should do, just mom and dad. Right? And the roof about went off the house when I came home my freshman year and told them I was switching my major to education. Right? And at the same time, it's about having true revelation about what is it about you that you are passionate about. And I tell people all the time, just like I told the kids who were looking and going in zoology, I said, you should feel like you're the LeBron James at the zoo, right? LeBron James can own that court, but he can't wrestle with this alligator like the hunter used to do, right? Can't hold on to that monkey like you can do. At the end of the day, he can't be a teacher like you. A teacher could be in a classroom and a doctor in a surgeon room. You should wake up wanting to do this stuff. Eat, sleep, and think every day about what you do. So going into those programs is taking them out to one, that the kids see them on a field experience, that the staff see it. Open it up for TPS, we call it Discover TPS, for the employee or for the parents to see it. So when we talk about 7th and 8th grade, and we talk about that early high school opportunity, guess what? You have already developed a plan of what you're going to do now. The reason why many people don't take advantage of some of these extra programs, they can, because they're not truly sure what they're going to do. But now that I have a good gauge on what I'm thinking about, it makes sense for me to go to high school and take it in 7th and 8th grade. Because if I get it out the way now, I can start getting 9th and 10th and allowing to get high school out of the way. So when 11th and 12th grade comes, I can get my associate degree in X, Y, and Z. So again, let's talk about some of the programs that we align. Toledo Technology Academy. You can now get an applied science, applied engineer associate degree upon graduation. Jones Leadership Academy, which is right down the street. We're finishing our articulation of getting an associate degree in business or an associate degree in art with an educational emphasis on it. Toledo Early College, you get an associate degree and art with 9 different bachelor programs that you can go to at the University of Toledo. By the time you're 20 years of age, you have a bachelor's degree. At the same time, some of the others. At the same time, there's some other programs in regards to the Aviation Center. The Aviation Center, those kids right now, upon graduation, get an aviation mechanics license, FAA approved at any airport in the country. At the same time, now at Owens, they can get an avionics, which is working in the towers. Again, right out of high school. Meaning if I could walk away and you have an associate degree, there's a higher probability that you go back for a bachelor's degree. But if not, you are much more competitive than a child who just has a diploma. Just as I told the mom the other day, I said, I'm paying $20,000 for my kid to go to the private school. I said, well, I'm going to tell you what, you're going to walk out with $30,000 of debt. At the same time, your child's going to come out and it's admirable that he got a diploma, but this young man and young lady over here got a diploma and an associate degree. I said, at the end of the day, there's a comparability. The person that says this person got a degree and diploma, there's an ability for their employment is much higher than yours. Their qualification is higher. You know, and as I told him, I said, I got dropped off to work the other day. The kid who dropped me off was a Wade High School graduate last spring. Dropped me off to office. He's changing my oil and giving me a tune-up on my car. I'm paying him $21 an hour. Boy, I gave you the diploma. Give that money back. But at the end of the day, he said, Dr. Durant, I'm just doing it to pay because I'm going to go to law school. He's got a plan. He developed a skill. He's using his skills, getting paid $21 an hour instead of having to huff and do other work at minimum wage. Much more highly qualified, having an opportunity to have a better plan for success in life because your finances have an impact on your socioeconomic status. You put yourself in financial debt, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. And that's why I say the concept of the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because at the end of the day, if you're rich and you got good credit, you're paying less for this vehicle than somebody who struggled and had bad credit. They're paying twice as much. How are they going to get ahead? And so at the same time, setting them up for success in life. And so again, developing the associate degree pathways, at the same time developing partnership. NASA is now, we're one of the first high schools in the country that they developed a partnership with not only our precision class, but they've also developed it with our advanced electronics, which is our drone program. The drones, as you can see, look like little airplanes that fly, have cameras on it and everything else. But NASA is truly impressed in some of the things that we're doing. What the kids are doing over at NASA is they're developing the wheels that go on the rover on Mars. And that NASA right now is having a difficult time for their rover that's landing on the moon, as well as Mars, to drive because it's sand and it keeps sinking and gets stuck. And they can't solve the problem. But they begin to realize the minds of their current workers are boxed in to come up with the problem. And that's when the kids came up with a solution, and they looked at the solution and said, why didn't we think of this? Right? Kids developed 3 prototypes. They contracted the kids this year to follow up on it, and ultimately, they're going to put it on the vehicle. I told them we take a TPS Proud to the moon, right? We put it on the moon. But again, just as they say, the innocent eyes cure the many. And so when they talk about the story, did you hear about the story when a semi-truck got stuck under the bridge? And they were sitting there trying to rip it out, and they had certain crane pulling in, all these things were trying to pull this trailer that got stuck underneath this viaduct. And do you realize a 7-year-old girl walked up and said, why don't you guys just let the air out the tires? Right? They let the air out the tires and the vehicle moved on its own. Right? But again, it says the innocent eyes cured the many. You have become trapped in your ways in regards to politics or whatever it may be to see things in a box vision, and kids can see beyond its means, which is why they have become an asset to industry. In regard to talking about some of the things that we want to do within the community, we want to continue with the rebirth of Macomber Whitney. We got 2 Macomber grads right there. Yeah, they walk. Oh Lord, Mr. Sweetie over there. Now I know Pastor Sweeney. Pastor Sweeney. I was a football player at the University of Toledo. Pastor Sweeney was a wrestler. Pastor Sweeney knew nothing about a shirt. He walked around all day off campus like he was the Macman mascot all day like this. We'd be like, man, Sweeney, put a shirt on, man. Come on. But you didn't hear that from me. But again, in regards to not only that, having a rebirth of Macomber Whitney, in regards to me, That was probably one of the biggest. I would hate to see the economic impact that it had by closing down a school of its own uniqueness, as well as produce trade workers, as well as contractors that have done most of the work that you see in Toledo today that ultimately contribute to the economic status of this local economy. And so being able to sit down and say in regards to the same concept that you've heard me say with many of these other programs, and that the rebirth of Macomber Whitney would not only be a comprehensive high school, but the community college is built within the school. Our conversation with Owens as well as Northwest State in regard to having a conversation that they're on campus, meaning you come here from 7th to 12th grade, you will walk out of here with nothing less than the 3, a certification, associate degree, or a pre-apprenticeship. Pre-apprenticeships will get skimmed right off the top unless the kids want to stay for the associate track, but they have the ability to get certification just as well. But to me, it's always kind of like a Macomber on steroids, meaning that these kids walk out with the skill sets needed by doing things comprehensively, but adding 7th and 8th grade to the mix. Because when you do it, you remove 13 and 14, and you build it up on the front end because it's mandatory for you to be here. Let us build your self-confidence up within that window of time. Because for some reason, we lose out on self-confidence after the 12th grade and never going back. But when you earn a degree within the 12th grade model, you have developed some wins and confidence of its own. And so being able to have that ability to do that. An early childhood program over on the east side. Do you realize the 05 zip code is the most impoverished community in the city of Toledo? I'm an east sider, I know it all too well. You had the Weiler Homes, Ravine Park Village, and the Birmingham Terrace, all in close proximity, all project housing, but at the same time developing early childhood, but an emerging school within that. Do you realize now about 95% of Hispanic populations on the east side? When we closed Libby down some years ago, that population moved across the bridge and moved to the east side because that's where their home school was considered now, Wade High School. Addressing that same population with a school of its own uniqueness, and elementary performing arts. At the same time, developing a STEAM school. You heard of STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine. Adding A in it for art in regard to embracing the arts within the technology. Providing parents with opportunities, either going technical or adding arts within the technical just to service kids' needs. At the same time, some of the programs that we're doing is outreach to the community. We have a senior citizens initiative that we do. Within that initiative, we work with Billy Johnson for the Area Office on Aging. In regard to what we do is we have the Golden Apple Card. All senior citizens get into any event for free. If you don't have a card, just show them your license, and if they give you problems at the door, you say, Dr. Durant said. Now, you better be of age. I mean, with Dr. Durant, I get it, you'll be in. And so again, get into our events for free. At the same time, our senior citizens, in regard to if you're from the area of Toledo, there used to be malls all over the community. You had Woodville Mall, Northtown Mall, Southwick Mall, along with Franklin Park Mall. Well, all those malls closed except Franklin. Now it's overpopulated with people. Senior citizens no longer go for exercise. They used to walk the perimeters of those other malls for their wintertime exercises. Well, guess where they're going today? Nowhere. So we instead going from mall walk, we call it hall walk. They come over at 3 o'clock at the end of the day of high school, and they walk the perimeters of our high school. They get bussed over, some have their own rides, but again, providing exercise for them. And then at the end of the year, we do what's called senior prom, right? Where the senior citizens are reliving their prom days, and some of them didn't get to see prom. Oh yeah. The numbers have grown from 300 to 1,000. And they come, and you know what's so funny? This last one, I had these 2 people, a couple, and they were like, Dr. Durant, our first year, you had the first year, and we met at that first one, and we want to let you know we now are married. Hey, we're not tpsmatch.com, but I mean, we can help you. I'm going to help you out, you know. But, yeah, so they get married, but again, providing opportunity for our senior citizens, because at the end of the day, they have to feel like school is just a part of their lives than for students. Because at the end of the day, when people say, why aren't they supporting levies going to the school? It's because they feel no attachment to it. Some of them don't have grandkids that are there. Many of the kids they have adopted as grandkids because of the interactions we have. Now they get to have recreational services. They get to come over to the sporting event. At the same time, they have a prom dance set for them that they look forward to every year. This school, my investment into this school affects me. But again, making sure that people are part of what you do at the school program. And then finishing up on last in regard to one of the programs that we have that we're excited about is that we have a program called Bringing the Holy Back to Toledo, right? This is called Holy Toledo. I said that for you, Pastor Sweeney, because I'm hoping to get a collection afterwards, because schools need money. But again, this initiative allowed to develop relationships with the churches. Every Sunday I go to a different church and speak at their church. And whether it's 2 or 1, or depends on their time frame, but going out and talking about their involvement and getting involved into the church. We're now at 28 churches that have adopted schools. Not adopted schools to say, because this is what I tell them, if you're just going to come for holidays, don't come. I don't need you. Because we got people that do that in their lives every day. But if you're going to come to be a consistent presence within this school, then we need you. Because that's what means the heart to the heart of a child. Because that's when they know you care, because you're there every day. And so what these churches are doing is they're coming there and they're there from dawn to dusk. But more importantly, what we do is we leverage the talents of their congregation. Meaning there's people in the congregation that are doctors, fitness trainers, eye doctors. There are people out there who have skill sets who are retired teachers, who are now in the schools doing tutoring, who is now the physician that comes in once or twice a week to see students or see individuals from the hours of X, Y, and Z. At the same time, we leverage the pastors, because at the end of the day, if your pastor come to you, say, Mr. Ward, I need, you've been blessed, to whom much is given, much is required. You're required to go to this church and give your talents one day a week. No one's going to tell their pastor no, right? So that's why we lean on the pastor. But at the end of the day, there's efficiencies in it, because it becomes something that's a blessing on an individual who pays it forward to a blessing within the schools. At the same time, the effectiveness of it allows you to identify untreated children. I said, you have no idea some of the things that you see until you've been in the mix of this world. I said, I'll tell you what, we have a first grader that last year, the young lady had cataracts as a first grader. We had an eye doctor who identified as cataracts. And then what do you think her kindergarten brother had? Cataracts. And so what do you think the 2-year-old little brother at the home was already showing signs of? Cataracts. At the same time, understand when you're at the mother hasn't taken the kid to the hospital since birth. So it begins to tell you there's a deficiency, but more importantly, it's more alarming is that it tells you that cataracts normally don't show up until your 30s. But at the end of the day, untreated, that ultimately a body will deteriorate at a more rapid rate if not serviced, if not appropriately addressed. And so we're seeing these kids, so we end up doing a mobile vision. We got with United Way, they paid for it. We're going to take a mobile van and do the vision screening of some of these kids. We only did 20 schools. Understand, we got 50. Out of the 20 schools we screened, 1,169 students, 80% of them needed prescription glasses, and 6 of them had blindness. So again, when you begin to talk about that's a huge problem, wait till we see what the rest of the kids are looking like. Because that was only 20 of them. But again, a child who had hearing impairment, who had vision impairment, some relations that they ultimately will have behavioral problems, because there's something within the impairment that ultimately sets them off. And so again, addressing those needs before you can get to the child in regard to educating them on the need to have them for a successful life. So again, I'm appreciative that you sat here and listened to me preach today. I'll see you on Sunday. But again, I just want to say that I am TPS proud. I'm a proud graduate of Wade High School, class of 94. Thank you for having me. You want questions? Okay. Thank you.
So we'll give an opportunity for some questions. Particularly, I'll ask the first question. Dr. Durant, could you say something about how your faith informs how you do what you do?
As you recall, I said earlier on that my major was in pharmacy, and again, having a spiritual background, is that I relied on the faith and allowed that faith to guide me in regards to what truly seated as my purpose. And so God began to send you signs in regards to what are those things that have relationships. So, I tell people that there are certain blessings that you begin to recognize that you cannot explain why. meaning for whatever reason, just being a teenage kid, and that these children would just respond to me for whatever reason. My brother would say the same exact thing, and they would just shun him off or just totally, as if he didn't matter. But the minute I turned around and said it, they responded. And at the same time, they were inspired to earn my approval. And I'm only 15 years of age. Next thing you know, 16, every time I became 18 and began to realize that, this is not normal. And that they're not doing it for my surroundings. So at the end of the day, there's something that God has blessed within me that I need to appreciate and embrace within my own life. And so that's when I moved to change the major from pharmacy and looked at education, because at the end of the day, if I can inspire a child to think, ultimately will set them on fire to achieve. And so just as I had told the media earlier today, because people talk about the branding of the collar and the sleeve, I said, you got to understand, I said, when a marketing agent from Columbus had called me and said, Dr. Durant, what I see on your collar is the most innovative concept of branding I've seen in a long time. I said, with no disrespect, sir, you just failed and you out of touch with what happens in Central City with the kids in that community. I said, because I see teenagers who are tattooing street names and project housing on their neck, and they tattoo it on their forearm, representing a gang mentality that they're willing to die for. That they're going to tattoo and brand themselves that I live in the Moody Manors. Brand themselves that I live in the Behan Projects. Brand themselves that I'm a Bill boy, a little head. And will put it on their neck and their forearm to represent something that they think is life. At the end of the day, the conversation that your residential situation is not your final destination, but with an education, let TPS remind you that you are perfect for something bigger than where you live at. That let you remind you you've been seeded with a gift that no other possessed. Let an education foster that with the support system of individuals, Sweeney, or the pastors, or individuals within the schools to support you to be the best that you can be. And so that's what I tell and saying, that let that remind you every time you see it on the camera, every time you see me walk through the halls and embrace you and ask about your education, let that be remind you before you ink yourself up with something that has no value to what you set for your own self-worth. And so that might have been a little bit, I mean,
That was good, brother. Any questions? We'll be able to take a couple questions because I know he's had a long day.
One of the things I've noticed in good schools, bad schools, rich and poor, that there's a lack of counseling to the students where you go to school, who gives you the most money. Because minorities in many schools, colleges have an advantage, because my son, who's biracial, out of the $150,000 education, $140,000 was paid for. But yet, my wife had to find those places. What are you doing in TPS to counsel these students and parents where the money is?
when you say where the money is in regard to what regards for scholarship. So in regard to scholarship, in regard to, yes, we have our own host of scholarships. We give out around 100 of them within the district, but our guiding counselors take them through in regard to, one, filling out the application. We hire somebody to actually do interviewing, so when they go into interview. And the other thing is I go out and speak to the groups as well. So I run a mentorship group called Young Men of Excellence, Young Women of Excellence, as well as many of the high school students that I speak to. And I said, understand that I went through 3 degrees and haven't paid $1 for any of them. But I said, but when I tell you the story, you got to ask yourself, what will do you have to achieve those things? Meaning that to achieve all 3 degrees, which is about $200,000, not pay $1, I said, you got to have a will to do. And I said, and it all started when I went to the financial aid office, and then I went to the College of Education office, and the way they used to do it was they had all these sleeve boxes. And all the sleeve boxes, and I tell the kids, I went to every one of them and read every one of them. Single mother scholarship. Nope. This one over here must come from an impoverished neighborhood or no, live in a single parent household. When mom and dad are together, they don't make a whole lot of money, but it don't apply. Nope. And so before you know it, I went through every one of them. Do you realize none of them applied to me? So what do you think I did? Applied for all of them. I applied for every one of them. I applied for every one of them. It was 80 scholarships, and what I did with it during the month of January when I had time off during winter break, just as the students had. I filled out every application, wrote every essay to every one of them, and turned every one of them in. And I told the kids that when February and April came around, I received a call, And the woman I remember to this day, I know her name, I won't put her out there, but she was hot because I applied for a lot of single mother scholarships, right? She was hot. And the one thing I told the kids I want you to take away from this is that the words that I stopped her in her tracks, and I said to her, I said, all you have to do is say no. I'd rather you say no than I tell myself no. And so she paused and she reiterated these were single mother scholarships, and she stopped. And then a month later, what do you think came in the mail? 3 scholarships, single mother scholarships, right? Paid for the schooling there. So what do you think I did the next January? Applied for every scholarship, right? So she called back on the phone again with the same conversation, and she wasn't mad this time. She said, we've been through this story, and I said, I understand how federal and state money works. Either you use it or you lose it. So dollars are there, and so she said, well, I'll tell you what, just fill out one application, and if there's residual money, you'll get it for you. We'll award a scholarship to you to pay, and that's how it paid for everything else. But I tell the kid, do not let a description on a sheet of paper define you. Define yourself in your application. It redefines what they're looking for in an individual. And so those are the things that we try to inspire our kids in regard to, one, having conversations about applying for everything. So when I talk about Wade High School and Scott, I could bring you a handful of kids who said, you know what Dr. Durant said really paid hold to me, and I earned 5 scholarships, didn't think I could do it. That was 5 wins under those kids' belt. And the one over here said I had 3 of them, and then when I told them I was in Young Men of Excellence, they gave me another scholarship. So again, developing these support groups that have recognition that we provide the kid to be part of, that begin to know, similar like the Boy Scouts, you're a Boy Scout, you get points. Well, guess what? Now in this area, if you're part of Mo and Woe, you get points for scholarships. And so we begin to show kids in regard to how to sell yourself, that ultimately your GPA may not be higher, but they see something within you that they want. And so when they are able to see the resiliency in you, I'd rather have a brass silver spoon who can bounce back than a golden spoon who hasn't seen adversity. And so those are some of the things that we have in regard to the kids, and we guide them through that process. We take them on a tour. So some of the kids, particularly in our minority, we take them to the HBCU tour, which is the Historical Black College. We take them all the way down to Florida and ride them all the way back. We, in 1 year time, have more kids in the HBCU than we had in 2 decades. Again, with their exposure. And so the same way with some of these other colleges. So right now we're in a situation with many of our athletes. And so we're sitting down having conversations with the coaches of why they should invest in these kids. But again, it's really sitting down, not only counselors, because it takes more than counselors. It takes people such as myself, people such as you, and many others who can attest to a child's ability, what they have to offer, than more than they're able to describe on a sheet of paper. And so providing those references really go a long way in having an impact on a child. But that is definitely, and what I find the most is that I didn't earn a single mother scholarship because, or having children, because I had no children. I have none now, and I said I wasn't married and was not, and heck, I was a principal and was getting these scholarships. So it tells you 2 things that are sad, that one, people are not applying, particularly into college, and so, and 2, those who aren't really putting good effort into doing it, turning in half application. So people are looking to invest in somebody who's truly showing that's worth investing into.
I just wanted to say thank you for talking about the school lunch program. I think that's very encouraging. What are the schools doing to address the issue in the summer, though?
Summer slide, as we talked about. Remember I talked about a child who was losing weight, 9-month period of time, loses the weight, and then all over the course of 3 months. So we've been doing, and there's where we develop capacity and working in collaborations with the agencies. So the YMCA provides summer slide programs for us at particular school areas that are in the most needs. Meaning that in regards to our most impoverished school neighborhoods, we have summer programs that are going on that are not only academically enriched, they provide lunch and dinner programs, as well as recreational services all the way up until about 4 o'clock. So again, we try to fill in those gaps. One of the things that we'll be sitting down and trying to develop at some point in time at TPS is developing comprehensive schools. So when you talk about a balanced calendar, you're talking about taking the summer months and breaking it up throughout the school year. Having conversations about that do you really need 2.5 months for a vacation? I mean, who really takes that much time? I mean, usually 2 weeks you had enough of the kids, right? You're ready for them to go back, but at the same time, 2 weeks, when you think of a Christmas break, everybody as educators are refreshed and they're ready to go right back at it. And so at some point in time, do you begin to pilot those opportunities, develop a balanced calendar that you still have the same amount, but it's spread out throughout the year?
That's good. Let's go ahead and give it up for Dr. Durant.